You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers go on the road to East Lansing to beat the Michigan State Spartans 71-67, moving the Hoosiers to 15-10 on the season, 6-8 in Big Ten play. But more importantly, they delayed Tom Izzo breaking Bob Knight's all-time coaching wins record in the Big Ten Conference by at least one more game. Coach Knight and Tom Izzo tied atop the list, and the Hoosiers, with, I think Indiana was an 11.5-point underdog, the Hoosiers are able to pull it out with a gritty victory, making free throws late. Just a tough, hard-nosed win by these Hoosiers. I just kept thinking as the second half is going on, it's like, in our darkest hours, there's always the Breslin Center, because you think back to 2019, like somehow in the midst of these terrible losing streaks, we go and beat ranked Michigan State teams in the Breslin Center, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I will take it. And really, for the first time in a while, I just really enjoyed watching Indiana play basketball, because after a rough beginning where Michigan State came out and took control, Indiana chipped away at the lead. And as we'll discuss, played so well in the middle 8 minutes of the game, the end of the first half, the beginning of the second half, to build a lead up that they were then able to nurse down the stretch and make free throws and pull out a win against a team that's having a really good season. Credit to the players and the coaches. It's obviously been a tumultuous, few weeks, and I don't think any of us knew what kind of psyche this team would have coming into this game, but they were well prepared. They adjusted inside of the game, and the guys played together. And just a really, really nice win for Indiana in a season that hasn't been good. But on this night, this team showed what they're capable of. I'm Jared Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips. The coach Bob Moats is here. We're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show, with producer Eddie manning the controls to help us get through this here on a late night show. Now, but let's start this show the way we start every show. That is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And I think there's lots of moments late that you could go to, in a close game like this on the road with Indiana, being able to just be solid with the ball and make free throws. But I'm going to go back a little bit further in the second half to where Michigan State cut the lead to 55-52. And, Indiana led by 3 at halftime and pushed the lead up early. They were up 7, they were up 9, and Michigan State kept cutting it back to 3. And you kept thinking, Ryan, you even texted at one point, it feels like Michigan State's going to go on a big run. And Indiana, every time that happened, or Michigan State was able to get it back to 3 or to 4, Indiana would make a little run to push it back out. And at this time, when Michigan State cut it to 55-52, Indiana went on a 6-0 run led by Malik Reneau. He had a great post move. Then on the next possession, Trey Galloway had a dunk on a fast break. I think it was a steal by Leal. He threw it out to Goody. Goody made a great pass to Galloway. And then on the next possession, Malik scored again. And Michigan State had no answer for Malik Reneau in the second half tonight. He looked like himself. He looked healthy again. He scored 16 second half points. And in that stretch there, before it became more of a free throw shooting game, when Indiana needed a bucket, they went into Malik and he delivered. He actually scored 10 of Indiana's 12 points during that stretch. It pushed the lead back out to 9. Now, obviously, Michigan State pushed back again, but that to me really felt like the point of the game where Indiana, it had a chance to go one of two ways. And a lot of times for this Indiana team, it's gone the wrong way. Tonight, it went the right way. They pushed that lead out to 9. They were able to nurse it down the stretch, and it resulted in a 4-point victory. All right, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call and their 4th as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. As you know, Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere. And since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. They recently released hockey jerseys with the script Indiana on them, which look amazing. You may recall, soon after College Game Day was in Bloomington this year, they put out pre-orders for the Lee Corso crew neck, the famous crew neck with the Indiana across the front. Those were recently shipped out. Everybody got them who pre-ordered them, including me. Love it. It's soft. It's comfortable, just like everything Home Field wears. And as you know, it's not just IU stuff. They have over 180 plus schools on their site. It makes Home Field the perfect one-stop shop for yourself, for any gifts that you need to get, for family and friends at any point during the year. It's high quality stuff. It's an Indiana company. Just so many reasons to go there and shop and buy. Go to homefieldapparel.com, use our promo code HOME23, and you will get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website, homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Ryan, we will start with you. Hey, not a lot to rant about for this game. What are your thoughts on this IU performance?
Unexpected, I would say. Look, I'm happy for them, to go out and get this win again, to delay the inevitable Tom Izzo taking over for Bob Knight. I think it's a little poetic that one of his former players coaches the team that prevents it. I think there's been a lot of turmoil. I think in front of the scenes, it seems like a very smooth thing happening, and the changeover and everything, it's been a little bit rocky behind the scenes for multiple reasons. And it was nice to see that not reflected on the court tonight. I thought Indiana, are we big fans of zone now? Cause I am. I'm totally flipping my
Okay, can we for a moment, can we note the irony of Bob Knight's record being saved for one night by one of his disciples moving to zone?
You noticed that too, huh?
Like,
I see no reason, given how, let's be real, how awful Indiana's defense has been this year, running the nail slot rim. I have no problem with them switching to this full time for the rest of the year if this is what works. And so far, they've run it before in spurts and it's worked. So run it until it doesn't work. Change the lineup.
Kind of the perfect team to run it against because they can't shoot.
But still, though, run it until it doesn't work, until you get beat, then go back to whatever you're running before that wasn't really working either. And then the other thing is, change the lineup until it works. There's no reason to stick with a lineup when you're not winning games. There was a big lineup change. It lasted 2 minutes and then he went back to what he had before, but still work with the guys who are playing well and put them in the game and use them more, quite frankly. But I don't know. I think that what I said, I tweeted after the game, I said, this is a great win. There's no arguing any way that this is not great. You went on the road and beat a really good Michigan State team, despite everything that's going on with your program right now. Those players and those coaches deserve a lot of credit for that. Everybody who participated in that does. Yep. The next thing I'll say is go on a freaking run. Like the thing hanging over you for the past couple weeks is now gone. There is nothing hanging over you. There's no shadow on you right now. The only thing standing, and you are as talented as everybody you're going to face the rest of the season. The only thing standing between you and a berth in the tournament, because you've got a lot of quad one games left and you've got the Big Ten tournament left. The only thing standing between you and that is yourself. If you can play the way you are capable of playing, you can go on a run and make it to the NCAA tournament. And once you're in the tournament, who knows what's going to happen? But tonight showed that they can play with anybody if they play the right way, and they limit their mistakes, and they play the right way defensively, and they play with effort, and they play with a focused intensity. If they do that, they can play with anybody. It's what we've been yelling for all season long. Now that all of that other stuff is gone, just play basketball and do it the way you're capable of. And we'll be looking back in a couple weeks and saying, man, this is turning into a really nice story. A guy's going to retire and his team might make a run, might go on a run for him. You're the only one standing in the way of doing that is yourself. And so if Indiana doesn't beat itself, it can beat everybody left on its schedule. And that's what we need to learn from tonight.
Absolutely. Well said. Coach Moats, over to you. Your opening thoughts on this IU victory.
Yeah, the zone thing, we saw it against Michigan, and it basically flipped the game there. It allowed Indiana to get back into it. And tonight, it was. I think everyone could definitely agree it was a key to victory. I'm going to own something here because I think about 2 months ago, our chat mob was saying, "Why don't we try zone?" And a few I was one of them, said, "Why the hell would you try that?" It's like because you just kind of had a feeling. It's like, hey, they should play man. They have the guys to run the pressure they're running, and I'll be darned, it's working. Now we state the obvious that if your opponent can't hit water, if they fell off the deck of the USS Nimitz, it doesn't really that helps you a lot, but it helps your man zone regardless what you're playing. But
you know what it really helps though, Bob? I know this is your statement, but what it really helps is the guys like Mbako and Reneau who can't guard on the perimeter, and that is worth giving up a few open threes, quite frankly.
Precisely my next point, because if you're going to play a lineup where you have Reneau, Mbako, Goody, and Ballo, and like 3 of the 4 of them in at some given time, you might as well just put them on the bottom line of a zone, have the backside of it, what they're kind of doing, have that backside of it just basically just close down the back door and use your off guard to close off that middle a little bit. And it actually helps them recover a lot faster on the perimeter, because they're having to go more around versus they're not getting the same penetration they were getting off the old nail slot rim. You can argue teams will probably figure out how to screen the middle of that a little better, but I think IU is quick enough in those top 2 spots to be able to shut it off. And they are, there are times that they're moving they're moving that low guy up a little bit. You're seeing it kind of morphs a little into that 3-2 a bit, where they're kind of taking some stuff away. What it really does is what IU has not done all year, or really in the last 2, which is disrupt offenses off ball. IU throughout the course of since Trace Jackson Davis left, they're not very effective at getting in passing lanes and getting deflections and just throwing the timing of an offense off. And the last 2 times we've seen this zone, they've done precisely that. Because I think what we're seeing here is it's a different look, and it's enough of a different look. And they may give up a couple seams here and there, but for the most part, they're doing a really good job of just, again, stopping the ball from getting where their opponents want to put it. And forcing them to take shots that the opponents don't want to take. I mean, they took several where they were shooting that 17, 18, 19 footer that you just don't want to, if you're a coach in this level, you want your opponent shooting that shot, especially in the middle with a guy that they really don't want shooting it there. And they did a wonderful job. There are a few plays, and we'll probably get to that, that they going in the second half, they're trying to get a lob set up. And just like they took it away against Michigan, they did the same thing against Michigan State. They closed the back door, took the lob away. They weren't able to kind of scheme their way out of it. They weren't able to play their way out of it, weren't able to shoot their way out of it. So that gets you the win. And so just a great adjustment by the coaching staff and great execution by the players there.
It was a well-coached game. It was a well-played game. This was Indiana basketball tonight. It wasn't like pretty. It wasn't perfect. You can still see some of the warts there, but the guys played winning basketball. They played tough. And I think what really showed is they played together. Like, they really played together for 40 minutes tonight. There wasn't.
The guys filled their roles well.
They did. Mm-hmm. They really did. And and we'll get to a guy like Mackenzie Mbako, who didn't play a lot in the first half, didn't play a lot there in the second half, but stayed mentally with the game and came back and was huge, making free throws down the stretch. All that stuff mattered. What I want to discuss here off the top is I think it's important to note, and it doesn't take anything away from the win, because Michigan State is a really good team. You beat them on the road. This is a good matchup for Indiana. Mm-hmm. Michigan State is not a team that's going to make threes and run away from you, which obviously is an Achilles heel for Indiana. And they're a team that, can play through some of their bigs, but Indiana can actually do that better. And I thought Ballo was huge in the first half and kind of dominated the scoring for Indiana. And then Reneau took over in the second half. And this is a game where, because Michigan State isn't that explosive, and you got them out of their normal game and got them taking more threes than they usually take, and they couldn't make any of them, Indiana was able to go to its bread and butter and not only just play off the, go to Ballo and Reneau off the block, but there was also a stretch there in the second half, Ryan, where you had Galloway just going to the bucket, Miles Rice just going to the bucket. Rice had that stretch where he had a couple drives right in a row, the one where he kind of flipped it up, over his head and it went in. Indiana was just pressuring the rim. And that's how Indiana wants to play. And they did what they do better than Michigan State does what they want to do. And Indiana actually got them out of doing what they want to do. And I think that's what was nice to see, because it so often has been the opposite, where it looks like Indiana's chasing its tail a little bit, or just scrambling to keep up, or, doing things outside of their comfort zone. And I think it's one of the Achilles heels of this program is that they have a very narrow comfort zone. But tonight they were able to play in that comfort zone, and it led to winning because they did all the other little things. Luke Goody just making smart plays on defense that aren't going to show up in the box score. Same with Leal. All those things add up to a 4-point victory. But I just thought, Ryan, the matchup in particular is one Indiana could take advantage of, and they did. And that was nice to see.
I think you're 100% right. But I'm going to take issue with something you said. You said it wasn't pretty. Are you suggesting that when one team shoots 23.1% from three and one shoots 17.4% from three, that's going to be a not pretty game?
You know what? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, you're right.
To be honest, an Indiana victory at Breslin, no matter how it comes, is beautiful.
Yeah,
so
I would
it wasn't
agree.
aesthetically pleasing, but
there you go.
Beautiful.
There you go. I appreciate your clarification there. No, I agree. I think it was a good matchup for Indiana, and I think that it's the kind of thing that, what I think looking back, what impressed me is Indiana won both halves, and it wasn't what we've seen a lot is a lot of times they have a bad start, which happened tonight, and then they come back and make it close by halftime. And then second half, they just run out of gas and get blown out, either with a big early run or just a progressive pulling away. They took every punch Michigan State threw. And I think you're right about the matchup being a good fit. So they had places they could attack. But then you saw things you haven't seen in a while, like Miles Rice attacking the rim late in the second half. I mean, just saw a maturity from them in what they were doing that we haven't seen in weeks. And I think that, and it was different guys. And, like you said, Mbako stepping to the free throw line, knocking down his free throws late. I mean, they don't win the game without those free throws. And
after missing his first one too.
Yeah.
Like he missed one and then regathered himself.
And I think that just stuff like that showing up in the key moments is what this team has been missing all year. I mean, they've been missing playing good teams early in the year. They'd get blown out by 20. Let's be real. That's what was happening when they played good teams. When you go going on the road, they get blown out pretty significantly. But this team tonight not only played well in the middle section of the game, which has been a thing that's happened before, but they also closed in a mature, smart, balanced way. And again, it was almost like there's no pressure at this point. If you lose this, nobody is, gonna drag you out and throw you under the bus. It's what's supposed to happen. And they played like they had nothing to lose. And quite frankly, for the rest of the season, they have nothing to lose. And there's nothing stopping them from going out and just playing free. And that's what happened about midway through that first half through the end of the game. And there are spurts where Michigan State made runs or whatever, but every time Indiana had a counter, and usually it was going inside. But it was a different team, and the mentality seemed to be different. Again, the word that comes to mind is mature. They made smart decisions with the basketball. They attacked the right places. They got the ball in the right places. And then they were able to finish and execute when they did that.
Bob, I want to talk a little bit more about Malik Reneau here off the top, because I thought in the second half he was huge. And I'm sure we'll be talking about him more come game ball time. But, you can look at the box score, and it's like, man, Malik was 8 for 19. Not a real efficient game. I think that's extraordinarily misleading. If you think back to when Indiana won against Michigan State in 2019, with Justin Smith and Juwan Morgan and Romeo Langford. Do you remember what Romeo was from the field that game? He was like 4 for 15. He was very inefficient, but when Indiana needed plays, the ball was in his hands and he made plays. He was a dude and he played like one. That's what Malik Reneau did tonight. You can tell when he's playing just the way that this team is built. And we know all the imperfections of trying to build lineups around Malik Reneau. Like, we know it kind of caps this team ceiling, yada, yada, all that stuff. That's not the discussion for tonight. With this team, with Malik's maturity, how long he's been here and the way they play, they really feed off of him getting the ball and, getting down low and scoring like he did in the second half. And I thought it really helped everybody else kind of relax. And if you're going to win a road game like this, you need a guy like that, inefficient or not, to go produce. And so Malik doesn't get the start, but really for the first time since his injury, I thought looked like himself and finishes with 19 points, 12 boards. And there was a great comment in here that producer Eddie put in the chat that Yasir Rosemont said with Don Fisher. Where was it? Something about, he told Malik he wasn't going to start. Yeah. And Malik said, "Coach, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do." And I was just really impressed with his ability there in the second half to really anchor what Indiana was doing offensively the way that he did. And so I'm much less concerned with the 8 for 19, which is, not Malik's normal efficiency. But what matters in a game like tonight, where points are at a premium, is do you get the production? And he did. And those 19 points, the 16 that came in the second half, were all huge. And that's big for Indiana to get him back. If he's healthy, that's really going to help Indiana down the stretch be able to win some more of these games.
He came into the game off the bench and scored Indiana's first basket. And it's not even, that's not a symbolic thing. What that really comes down to is it shows that when he got in, he's like, okay, I'm ready to play. Let's do this. They were down 7-0 when Woodson said, okay, it's you time. You got to go do this, and we need you on the floor. So he scores the first basket, and I think beating the matchup is not always a bad thing, especially when you have a matchup advantage. And they had one clearly tonight, especially considering Michigan State was in significant foul trouble. And they could just go into him and attack and continue to attack that, just attack the middle of the, basically the middle of the lane with him going what he usually does. Whether it's back to the basket or oftentimes going north-south and getting him in those actions that he just gets downhill. And it's really hard to stop, really hard to really kind of shut off. And I would say another big thing for Malik Reneau tonight, that offensively, what they did to help him was they bring Goody over. So they would cut Leal through and then bring Luke Goody over, which then prevented a dig when he's trying to make that move on the inside. And they really couldn't scheme themselves out of it. Could they have brought help from Leal's side potentially? But then that's that it's not going to get there in time. You can't get your digs. You can't get that pressure. You can't get it, out from that from off of the basically I use best shooter. So they really put Malik in positions to be successful tonight. And Michigan State really didn't scheme their way out of it. I think Eddie put out as well that Izzo even said that Mike Davis did a better job than I did tonight, and that's a hell of a compliment.
Galen's got everybody confused. Galen's got everybody saying,
"Oh,
Mike
man, Mike Woodson, thank you." Oh, wow, okay, yeah. So Mike Woodson, he did a better job. Basically did a better job than he did tonight. And that's a hell of a compliment. But I think a lot of the there was just a lot with both Ballo and Reneau. This was a game that was well matched for the two of them to go in there and just do what they're capable of doing on from the interior. Again, not pretty, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, I think the other thing is, we could look at looking at efficiencies. Was anybody efficient tonight? I mean, honestly, on either team,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Really,
it wasn't a game for efficiency.
Wasn't a game for efficiency. This was just you're going to go. I think at one point I wrote down this is a rugby scrum. There was some high-low action with Reneau and Ballo. It's like this looks like I think Reneau actually hit Ballo on one of those high-low things, and it was like this. And I think Reneau was actually scrumming and got himself down in the lane. So that was really one of those deals where, and this is again a team that hasn't always responded well to playing physical basketball. This is very physical. This really should have been an Izzo type of game with tempo and just the overall ugliness of the game. Usually these are the ones that Tom Izzo finds a way to get out of. Usually somebody has to do something spectacular, like Devontae Green did in 2019, if I recall. Somebody has to do something spectacular to beat him. We didn't do anything really spectacular. We just I think actually we out-toughed Michigan State tonight. I think Indiana University out-toughed Michigan State tonight.
Has Tom Izzo muttered something about Justin Smith yet in his post-game press conference? Probably.
Doubtful.
Ryan, your thoughts on Malik before we break?
Yeah, and I think that one of the stats, and we're going to get to stats obviously, but one of the things popping out to me is that Indiana shot 48% from the field tonight, and Michigan State shot 38.2%. And the fact that they were going inside. Now Malik was 8 of 19, not the most efficient as you said, Bob, but it was the mentality to attack the rim that changed the game. And we've seen Malik get like this before, but he was fearless. He just was fearless attacking, and he was going to go at him. And there were sometimes it was ill-advised, but you'd rather have somebody be aggressive and slow them down than have to find their aggressiveness. I think that's been the problem with Miles Rice over the past stretch, is he looks discouraged and hasn't been attacking and has been deferring to everybody else. It's like, man, you're the point guard at a Big Ten school. You should be driving the action. And so you'd rather have him be taking too many shots and need to be pulled back than, the other way around. And Malik attacked. And you need, in a game like this on the road, you need somebody to step up and be the alpha. And he did that tonight. This was his game. This was the game where he went on the road in a big situation and stepped up and made things happen. You need that. You can't, it's rarely on the road against a good team. It's rarely, you can get a team effort. I would say tonight is a team effort, but there's always somebody leading the charge. And he was the guy leading the charge tonight. And I think that is really nice to see from him, given the up and down nature of his season and really up and down nature of his tenure at Indiana. This was a standout moment for him.
Yep.
I would only add real quick, he's coming off an injury, a very painful one at that. And,
Sure.
That definitely impacts that ability. And maybe tonight he actually felt more like himself and was able to play like himself. But I would just think that, if that's the case, that's a damn good sign. That's a really good sign for this program. A really good sign for this program.
Absolutely. Okay, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's surprising and very pleasant and fun 71-67 victory over Michigan State. We'll point out tonight's meaningful moments you might have missed, then go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Verdell Jones. What's better than an epic buzzer beater, the full court dribble, and perfectly placed pass to set it all up? And of course celebrating with Hoosier Nation afterwards. So join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
All right. Thank you, Verdell. By the way, Verdell just launched his own podcast. I forget the name of it here off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you search for Verdell Jones, you will get it. Verdell doing tons of awesome stuff in his community, and that is a podcast worth checking out. Always appreciate Verdell Jones. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jared Morris. Ryan Phillips is here. The coach Bob Moats is here. And it is time now for tonight's meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience IU athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. So for this meaningful moment, I'm going to go back to the first half. And, I mentioned earlier, Coach and Ryan, how in a lot of ways, I thought this game was won for Indiana in the middle 8 minutes of the game, the way they ended the first half, the way they started the second half. And so while Coach Knight maybe looking down on this one and wondering why we went to zone, he's going to be awfully proud of the way Indiana played during those times, which of course he always thought were extremely important in winning. But even earlier than that, if you go back to the first half, remember, Indiana controlled most of the second half, but the first 10, 12 minutes of the game were controlled by Michigan State. And so Indiana was down 24-15 at one point in the first half, and it was kind of, a 10, 12 minute stretch there that kind of felt like it was teetering. You kind of just kept waiting for Michigan State to go on the run and push it out. And okay, we're going to lose by 20, 25, whatever. And Indiana just wouldn't let it happen. And so they go up 24-15 after a Cooper layup. And then Oumar Ballo hit a little turnaround jumper on the right block. And then Anthony Leal found Luke Goody for a three-pointer on a fast break. And very quickly, it made it 24-20. And it kind of felt like, I know I viscerally felt, and it's almost like you could see a hop in the step of the guys after that shot where it's like, okay, we got a ball game. And from that moment forward, Indiana outscored Michigan State 12-5 to take a 32-29 lead into halftime, and then immediately came out in the second half and pushed that lead up, to 7, as we mentioned earlier, 7-9, and Michigan State would come back, and Indiana would push it out. But, Coach, I thought, that little stretch there in the first half, first halves on the road against teams that are supposed to beat you, there's kind of those moments where things can go either way. When that team gets up by 7, when they get up by 9, if they can hit a 3 and get up by 12, the avalanche starts. And I thought that little stretch was so key, and it was kind of a microcosm of the game. Indiana needs that bucket when they're down 9. They go inside, Ballo gets it, and then they're able to find a play in transition, Leal with good awareness, to find Goody, and he knocks down the 3, one of the few threes Indiana hit. But again, I just thought in the moment it was huge, got Indiana settled into the game, and then they kind of took off from there and really controlled the rest of the game. But that little stretch, just a really key moment on the road for the Hoosiers.
I would agree. I think there was another one also that was right before that. Going out of at the under 8, where it was actually Bryson Tucker who kind of started it off, or right before the under 8, which was he gets a steal, gets fouled, hits a couple free throws, And then the next one was another steal, hit Goody for the 3. And then it was Rice driving to the lane at 9:07. So in a game where IU had basically scored 8 points in the first 12 minutes, going in that point, they fired up another 6. And they did it by getting out in transition. They did it by attacking the rim using dribble penetration, which I think gave Michigan State a little more something to think about. And I think both of those runs, and the run you hit was exactly the one that seized control. One stops the bleeding, then they go on a little mini run, and then you go on a little bigger run, and all of a sudden, that's how the game is supposed to flow, especially if you're in comeback mode. Rare is the day you go and you're down 20, you get a 22-0 run just to win it. Rare is that day. And when it does happen, you put that on the wall next to next to your hunting trophy. But if you get this type of situation where, okay, you chip away a 6-0, they go on a little 4-pointer, then you get your 8-0, your 10-0, and all of a sudden you're back and you're slugging it out. You've come back off the canvas. And we were talking about this earlier. This is a team that has, when they get knocked on the canvas, and especially coming out the way that they did, not shooting the ball really well at all. And they ended up shooting, I think, what was it? Over 40% from the field today, which was when you start looking at where this team started shooting the ball to where it finished, they had a much better performance. And they just, again, they got the job done in that regard. Again, wasn't pretty, wasn't something you're going to put on highlight reels, not something you're going to clinic, but it was still very effective and really kind of took, kind of got the ship righted and just got it moving forward.
Bob, any other moments that stood out that we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, I will just go on to this. Another one that, things that you want to see, which we talk about space in the lane and how sometimes, how do you do that when you play through the post? About 9:57, they hit Ballo in the post after actually Ballo got the rebound. They got it back out, hit him back down in the post. And he found Galloway off of a cut. And they were playing too tight. Galloway cuts, gets the layup, and then the next possession, Rice had one of those drives. Where he just got downhill quick, blew right by everybody, got the layup, and again, one of those ones that Michigan State's cutting the lead. Michigan State's doing a lot of good things. You start feeling that maybe the wheels fall off. You go into one of those where they go on one of those killer runs, those knockout runs. You stop it by basically executing good offense, and you did it because you had space in the lane in order to do it.
You're muted, Jared.
And hear you, Jared.
I am muted. Sorry, I had to sneeze, so I muted myself and then forgot to come back on. Okay, let's talk stats. And stats, as always, brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. Ryan, what stats stand out to you from this IU performance?
The big one I noticed was 63.6% is what Indiana shot in the second half. I mean, there were 14 of 22 from the field. You're not going to lose a lot of games when you shoot that way from the field, especially when you enter the half with a lead. But both teams got better offensively in the second half. Michigan State, a lot of that was very late, but they shot 45% in the second, 45.8% in the second half. And so Indiana, for the game, outshot them by 10%, 48-38 on their home floor, which doesn't happen a whole lot. And the other thing that stood out to me was the total, Indiana lost the rebounding battle by 5, but they lost the offensive rebounding battle by 5. So really from a defensive rebounding standpoint, it was pretty much a standstill, which against a very physical team, something that Tom Izzo prides himself on is the rebounding game. And you were close enough to them, I'd say. And I guess the other thing, if I had to go with one final thing, was Indiana won the turnover battle and 1 points off turnovers as well.
Yeah. The other thing that stands out, looking at this to me, Bob, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying about, a guy like Malik Reneau stepping up, is Indiana only had 10 assists tonight. And Indiana typically, from an offensive standpoint, is a team that gets a lot of assists. 56.7% of Indiana's made field goals this year have been assisted. Tonight, they made 24 field goals, only 10 were assisted. And that's because Malik Reneau was doing some of that work by himself, and Miles Rice was doing some of that work by himself and just going and beating a guy. And sometimes, that's what you have to do. and Indiana hasn't always been able to do that. And so that's, one of the reasons they were able to win on the road, without maybe their normal, kind of offensive flow, because guys just went and made plays. And that's nice to see, especially for someone like Miles Rice, who has struggled with his confidence. He doesn't get the start tonight, but he came through big in the second half, and he was, assertive, taking the ball when he had a little bit of space, and he was able to finish some of those. And so, so to be able to win with that was obviously helpful. And then 8 steals for Indiana, 4 by Luke Goody.
I did not expect that.
Indiana's no, and I thought one of the things that helped the zone, sometimes with Indiana's defense, whether they're playing man or zone, it feels at times like they're a little flat-footed and not as active. I thought Indiana had active hands and really got their hands on balls. And not only did it lead to steals, but just some deflections that just disrupted, some of what Michigan State was trying to do. And you have to do that if you're going to play zone and do it effectively. So it was just a team that was just very bought in to what they were being asked to do. And that's part of what, again, even if it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing basketball, it was nice basketball to see for a team that has sometimes lacked that kind of toughness and that kind of togetherness, and just doing some of those little things. They did some of those tonight, and that's what added up to the win. Bob, anything else from the stat sheet that stands out?
Another area where they really mitigated Michigan State was free throw shooting, and a lot of those were late. Don't get me wrong, but when you hit them late the way IU did, they sealed the victory. We've lost. This program's lost a couple of games this year, because they haven't been able to close it out due to issues at the line. But Michigan State, this was a game where, because of the way they were shooting from the field, they were going to have to run up the tally at the line. And part of that was the zone did a really good job of mitigating. Like, to start the game, IU was Michigan, going at the they were 7 for 7 from the line at the under 12. IU had yet to shoot a free throw yet. And when IU started attacking, getting their guys downhill, driving, that was over that Bryson Tucker play kind of comes in. They start racking up free throws. They start hitting them more, and they start kind of chunking that advantage that Michigan State had down. Yeah, Michigan State still had a one free throw advantage, but in a game like this, Michigan State needed it to be a much greater advantage, because as Ryan said, you shoot 63 when your opponent shoots 63% from the field and you don't, you're going to have to get points from somewhere. And they just couldn't cut into that lead, into Indiana's lead enough. And because Indiana was, again, executing at the line as well as from the field.
Yeah. Something interesting that's just a little bit more of a statistical oddity than anything else is every Hoosier who played took a free throw tonight. I don't remember the last time I saw a box score that looked like that.
That's very
everyone who played. Galloway, only took 1 and missed it. But everybody, 28 free throws, which is just a huge number for this IU team. They made 20, which was good enough tonight.
I think everybody scored too, right? Everybody that played scored.
Everybody did score. Yes.
And I wrote down at one point that at Michigan, at the under 12 Michigan State, they had 8 of their 10 guys that had scored. And so that's something that's notable, because, this team in the past has always kind of relied on 1 or 2 or 3 guys, throughout the game. And, IU tonight, they got a lot of guys involved in the offense, and they all put some points in.
Yeah. But, the other interesting thing too, Indiana with 32 bench points tonight, obviously with, Reneau and Rice both in double digits, and Michigan State with 33. So they actually outscored Indiana from the bench. So it was a big night for the guys on the bench. Ryan, anything else from a statistical standpoint?
No, I think you guys pretty much covered it. I mean, it was the stats show a mixed picture as far as if you didn't see the final score and wondering who won the game, but it's a close game in there because they're trading back the important statistics. And I do think, we mentioned the field goal percentage a few times. I think that's what won it for Indiana. They were more efficient. As we said, it wasn't really an efficient game across the board for either team, but they were more efficient in the second half and in closing time when it mattered.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you look at this Indiana team now and kind of what lies ahead, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, when we talk about lingering questions. Indiana's sitting at 15-10, 6-8. If they had lost this game and moved to 5-9, you really moved to the Big Ten tournament bubble, like squarely on the Big Ten tournament.
When they showed the standings, I got a little nervous.
Yeah. And so, I mean, look,
boy,
Indiana's won, more bad stretch of games, and they've got a tough one against UCLA, tough one against Purdue. But both those games are at home. And I think the nice thing is a win like this, the pressure relieved from kind of knowing what's going to happen after the season. I expect the team now to get some pretty good crowds after you have a win like this. Not that the crowd's been bad anyway, but I think maybe even stronger. And so now Indiana at 6-8 in conference play, 15-10 overall. Indiana's not on the NCAA tournament bubble yet. They have work to do to get there, but they may not be as far as people think. And a road win at Michigan State, a road win at Ohio State, they've won away from home against Penn State. Like, they've got a few things now on the resume that if they can rack up some wins, they can get on the bubble and go on a little run, Ryan, to the point that you made earlier.
Jared, let's wait another win or two before we start talking about
that. Because it may not come. I'm going to enjoy it right now.
Here's my thing. Beat Purdue.
Yes.
All your problems are solved when you beat Purdue.
I wouldn't say solved, but it held.
I would say most times in life, when you beat Purdue, you feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
The dog behaves better. Your kid goes to bed on time. L's right with the world. Beat Purdue.
Look, they have 6 games left. They're projected to win 2 of them. So let's not put the cart before the horse.
Hey, we're projected to win this one. So
I know. I'm just saying, like, let's not. It's a great win. Let's not start talking tournament until they start earning a little more.
No. Okay, you're missing the point. I'm not saying they're on the bubble. What I am saying though is kind of something that Galen has said, which is, it's easy with how this season has gone to just like, geez, like last year at this time, they weren't even on the NIT bubble.
I know.
Right. And so all I'm saying is they've got a few things on the resume that if they can rack up some wins, they're a little closer than you might think. And so they've still got work to do. There's no question about it. I mean, like you said, they're projected to lose, 4 of the next 6. They probably got to win 4 or 5 of the next 6, to make that a possibility. But you win a game like this, and that is one of those pieces. All you can do is go game by game.
2 quad.
And if we're going to be up this late and we just won Michigan State, let's indulge some optimism. There's going to be plenty of time for the rest of the stuff.
It's now 2 quad 1 wins, right? Penn State has slipped out.
Penn State had definitely slipped out of quad 1.
Yeah. So, okay, 2 quad 1 wins.
Yeah.
You get 4 by next Sunday, and maybe you start to feel good. Feel better. Not feel good.
Yes. Feel better. Yes, I'm down with that.
Just trying to be fair.
Remember, it's one game at a time. Eat your vegetables. Go to bed on time, which I think I've clearly not done tonight. So, it's one of those types of cliche times that you can kind of go through in these situations.
But at least
Ryan's being stupid again.
Late.
Excuse me.
Yes,
I'm the one being reasonable.
We don't want reasonable. We beat Michigan State in Breslin Center. It's not a night for reason. It's a night for celebration.
5 game skid. Break out of it. It's a bit of release the energy.
Here for release the energy. Yeah, people. It's past midnight on the East Coast. People are here to celebrate and have fun and think irrationally. Reason. No one wants reason. All right, coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls, Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and then we will look ahead to what's coming up next, which is Mick Cronin and his Bruins coming into the assembly hall. That's next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open 3, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Go Hoosiers.
All right. Thank you, James. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Bob Moats, celebrating Indiana's victory over Michigan State, 71-67. It is time now for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate. You can learn more at bloomenviro.com. All right, game balls. Mine is going to Malik Reneau for all the reasons that I stated earlier, so I don't need to restate all those. But he gets my vote. Ryan, who gets your vote for game ball?
No, Ryan's muted.
I know, it's beautiful. Don't tell him.
Son of a, I thought Jared was going to be the only one today. I Malik Reneau, seconded. 19 points, 12 rebounds. Played his best game we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, he was a dude out there. Bob, do you want to
Malik
throw
Reneau.
in a secondary vote here since Reneau gets it?
I think this is acclamation. Malik Reneau, obvious. Yeah. And even played had some decent defensive moments too tonight, I'd add.
Yeah, he did. And again, Oumar Ballo with 14 points, 10 boards. He had a nice productive evening as well, and was certainly on track for a game ball with his first half performance before Malik Reneau really took over there in the second half. But that's an easy one, game ball for Malik Reneau. Only his second of the season, but nice to see from him. Okay, and now it is time for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, reminding you to check out our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calvert Chaney, Evansville Security Services has been providing off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals since 2001. In other words, they're in the business of prevention and peace of mind. And remember, prevention cannot be measured. To learn more about how Evansville Security Services can help you preserve your peace of mind by preventing bad outcomes, visit evansvillesecurityservices.com. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Hustle Award. Coach Moats, we'll go to you first.
This one's tough because I could go a couple different directions. I am going to say Oumar Ballo. I'm going to give Ballo.
Okay.
Got the boards.
What
and because another reason why he gets the Hustle Award, playing interior the way that he did in that zone, kept him at home, very disruptive, played it extremely well. There was a couple times he got a little out of position, but his presence and the way he played, again, kind of stopped them from being able to do some easy things underneath, because he's able to alter shots, get in there, and just basically not let them get on that. When they did get to the backside of that zone, they weren't as effective as they could have been.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're going to go on the road and beat a Tom Izzo team, you're going to have pretty much everybody hustling. So there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this. There's a vote for Ballo. Ryan, who gets your Hustle Award?
I thought this one was going to be pretty easy. For me, it's Luke Goody. He had the 4 steals. I thought he was kind of everywhere and active defensively. He played 36 minutes. I mean, I thought that he was the guy tonight. I just thought his activity, and I hat tip to Anthony Leal a little bit too on that. But Goody played more minutes and managed to keep his energy up. Also, I'm giving him credit for that huge rainmaker teardrop that he shot up there early in the game. I don't know if anybody in the building thought that was going in, and it was perfect. So nice job, Luke.
Yeah, it's funny. Indiana wins by 4 points. You had that Luke Goody shot, and then the Mackenzie Mbako shot, that turnaround jumper that he made. I think it was at the end of the shot clock, where the announcers are like, "Man, that was an NBA shot."
Wasn't that Rivers said, "Oh, he's a tough shot maker," and then he made the shot. It's like, "Oh, yes, Austin, yes, he is.
He is. Yes, he is." Yeah, I'm going with Goody as well. A lot of different ways that you could go with it, but I thought, the 4 steals, like we mentioned, and just out there doing Luke Goody things. And I thought just hustling, not always up and down the court, but hustling in the half court, just being where you need to be, boxing out, doing the tough little things that you got to have everybody doing to win the game. And Indiana got more of that from more people tonight than we've normally seen, and that's why they won. But Goody kind of led the way, and that is his 5th Hustle Award. All right, and it is time now for our lingering question. And in terms of lingering question, I think every time we have a big win like this, it's like, well, is this going to lead to anything? Can Indiana build on this? It is worth stating that, in this Mike Woodson era, after big wins, the team has not always followed them up with very strong performances. But hopefully they can do that. I think coming home now, after playing 3 of the last 4 on the road, 5 of the last 7 on the road, now Indiana has 4 of the next 6 at home. You've got, UCLA coming in, also a team that is not explosive offensively. And so maybe a matchup, where Indiana can kind of play the way they want to play a little bit, not have the other team run away from them. And obviously Purdue after that. But I think that's a lingering question to me, Ryan. what we saw tonight. You earlier tonight referred to it as playing with like they had nothing to lose. I think that's a fair characterization. I think everybody knows what you mean when you say that. I would tweak it just a little bit, and I would say they played with a commitment to winning. Now they played a little bit freer without some of the pressure that we've seen, but you can play without anything to lose and be a little bit casual and not necessarily be there at the end of the game to make the plays. And I thought tonight there was just a different kind of mental toughness to the performance, at least that I felt viscerally watching on TV than we've seen. And so can this team take that and make some of the plays late? Now it might be fair to quibble. It is good that they fouled early, when they wouldn't let Michigan State get off the three. Not sure they needed to foul quite that early, quite as early as they did on a couple of those possessions. But the late game execution tonight was so much better. Those decisions, being able to get the ball inbound. By the way, credit to Luke Goody for being able to get the ball inbound every time without turning it over, and then to guys making the free throws. So what kind of mentality, what kind of psyche does Indiana bring home? Because if they bring this psyche and mentality, they can beat UCLA and they can beat Purdue at home. Now, will they? That's obviously the big question. But if they play like this, and that's been the problem, and we talk about it every time, Ryan, after a big win. Can they build on this? Can they back it up? And so I'm not here to make any predictions, but if they can take what we saw tonight and, where they actually closed out the game and bring that home with a crowd that I think is going to be a little bit more, ready to be behind them for 40 minutes, they've got some winnable games coming up now. But that is the question for a program that is so inconsistent, especially the way they approach the games mentally. What's that going to look like? It's a lingering question. Nobody knows, but they've got some interesting potential here if they can build off this.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the question we've been asking for the last decade is how do they deal with success? How do they deal with failure? And, it's been so much just 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or a step sideways. I mean, it's just a mess, but there's no forward progress. And, again, you're right. They can beat UCLA. They can beat Purdue. They played with Purdue at Mackey, didn't close it out. I mean, so I do think that it'll be interesting to see how the crowd responds. It's a Friday night game. Will people show up in droves? And will it be a welcome reception after turnaround? I mean, the crowds have been kind of not great lately as far as there's been a lot of booing. It's been some ugliness. Do they respond and try and pick the team up after a big win when they've been, played well? So we'll see. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, and I have no idea how the team's going to play. I mean, I really don't. I can't at this point give you any more analysis than that. I have no clue how it's going to turn out, and we'll see. That's why you watch the games, right?
That's one reason.
It is, and it's pretty much, I think, the purgatory we felt like we've been in for how long now? Where can this continue? Will this continue? What are they going to go? And I do think that there's a pressure off, at least for the fan base. There's a pressure off. I think these kids do feel like they have something to lose right here, and a lot of it comes down to, like, for about half this roster, this is their last shot to really perform, to play at this level. I mean, for a kid like Trey Galloway, for a kid like Anthony Leal, Luke Goody, even though he may be trying to shoot for a 6th season, I don't really see them as, these guys are basically saying, okay, this is our chance to prove ourselves. Other guys are basically proving themselves for whatever their future is as of St. Patrick's Day or beyond. So I think a lot of them are kind of looking at this, and they have a lot on the line. But with the pressure off this program, there's really no excuse other than to go out there and do the major league and just win the whole thing. At this point, just go win the whole thing, whatever that is. You're not going to obviously win the Big Ten, but do something that basically can kind of end this on a good note where everyone can give a standing ovation, and we can give the best possible turn the page moment with playing at the alma mater or something and call it a thing. I would say I'm really curious to see how this zone is going to continue to hold up. Now that teams are scouting it, they're kind of seeing how IU's running it. They're going to see seeing where the seams are, seeing where the cracks are. Not sure you're going to get teams continuing to shoot as poorly as they are against it. So that's going to be interesting how IU adjusts if they're going to keep in zone, how they're going to adjust zones, how they're going to adjust how they defend and where they're defending from, and how they're kind of closing out all those things. If they decide to continue down this road, maybe zone's the answer. Maybe that's the big thing. Like last year, 3 years ago is when they found XJ going middle ball, with that middle ball screen to Trace Jackson Davis by shake cutting Miller Kopp, and that changed the whole dynamic of the season. This could be a very similar schematic adjustment that can make a difference. But it'll just be curious. I'll be curious to kind of see how that plays out over the next, I don't know, month or so.
Yeah. All right. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. All right. We kind of entered today thinking, all right, we're going up there to play Michigan State. It's probably not going to go great. If it's just another loss like what we've seen, we can kind of scrap the post-game show and talk a little more big picture stuff now that, obviously the cat's out of the bag. Mike Woodson is not coming back. But I think tonight's performance warranted a regular post-game show. This was a solid win, an interesting win, kind of some new things to talk about, which is nice. But the late hour does not deter us. We can still talk a little bit of big picture stuff if you guys are into it. So let's close things up here, and then we can play the wonderful AC After Dark song by Bob Thompson, and then we can do some of that. So any final thoughts from you guys for last call before we close up?
Go on a run. Go do it.
Make it happen.
Especially if you feel like everybody's questioning you and talking down about you and they've been booing it, like stick it back in their face. Use that as motivation. But you've got all the talent in the world. Go make a run. Go do it.
Leave every ounce on the floor. Every ounce on the floor.
No regrets.
What other cliches you guys have? Come on.
Hey, I was just trying to list them.
Kids.
Only got one shot. Make it count.
Kids, do what your parents say and take your nap.
Play within yourselves at all times.
Oh, man. All right. So that will do it. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Assembly. That'll redirect you to the BHN Back Home Network YouTube page. Go to our Substack, assemblycall.com. Join our free email newsletter. Special thank you to Bob Thompson for the music that you hear on the show and that you're about to hear. Special thank you to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. Thank you for listening. We will be back. Oh, shoot. We forgot to talk about the opponent coming up. Well, it's UCLA. And it's Mick Cronin, so they're good but boring. And hopefully Indiana can beat them. We'll be back to talk about that game on Tuesday night. So, until then.
Take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
That's it. We're done. No more questions. I think they've gotten enough show.
And before we transition to AC After Dark, that could not have been a worse ending by the producer. So apologies for that. And
I thought it was great. I thought it was great. No, it was great.
Eddie, this is not a night for pretty. This is not a night for pretty.
That's all right. Yep, that's all right.
It's effective.
Exactly.
Here we go.
Let's try it again.
When the show is over, but there's more to be said. Pour yourself a drink now. Put the kiddies to bed. It's time to cut loose. No more censored remarks. So cozy up, chat mob. It's time for AC After Dark.
Gotta have a little butthole in you. San Diego chicken shit. Here I come, Coach Mike. I think I kissed a lot of girls. I think I might even kiss a lot of guys. I don't know. These are all rumors. I don't know what's true and what's not. Turn your butt cheeks on. Assembly Call co-host arrested.
Always so great.
Sony, the star of yet another song.
Yes, he is. All right, so let's talk coaching a little bit. Obviously, it was our policy entering this season to not, kind of try to not to have any of these big macro conversations. We kind of said what we thought in February of last season, that Indiana should have moved on after last season, but wanted to come into this season with an open mind hey, let's get a new roster. Obviously, Mike Woodson made the NCAA tournament his first 2 years. Maybe they can turn it around, and year 3 looks like more of a blip. Unfortunately, we know how this has gone, and I don't think any of us ever reference what we said in February of last year as any kind of victory lap, because it doesn't feel like a victory when Indiana basketball continues to stink. Like, Indiana having another bad season vindicates nobody except the people who think Indiana basketball isn't special, and that's not where any of us want to be. And so, I think, Indiana has now come to the right conclusion that it's time to move on from Mike Woodson. It seems like there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that, I don't really want to get into, just because I don't think any of us know any of the specifics of that. We know what's been announced.
The stuff that's going to come out is going to come out. It
is. And, but that kind of stuff isn't what we're talking about here. Obviously Coach Woodson is not doing his show with, not going to do the pregame and postgame with Don Fisher anymore. Calvert did the pregame. Coach Yah did the postgame, which is strange, but the whole situation is strange. So, we'll just kind of see how it turns out. I think all of us just want this to end with Coach Woodson walking away with as much, dignity and respect as possible, and holding his head high for everything he's meant to Indiana basketball. Him coaching here didn't go as well as everybody wanted, but he did make 2 tournaments. There are some memories that we'll have, from his tenure, some big wins that were meaningful. And so I don't want it to end on a really sour note. And so I'm just hoping the rest of the season goes well, win some games. Let's end this on a positive note for everybody. That said, there is obviously now a long interim phase between the announcement that Mike Woodson will not be coming back and what we know about the coaching search and when that new coach will be announced. And so, it's after midnight on the East Coast. So let's irresponsibly discuss some potential coaching candidates here, Ryan. What else is there to do? But no, what are your opening thoughts just on how all this has gone, and kind of how the early part of this coaching search is shaping up in your eyes?
I think it's played out pretty much how we thought it would. I was pretty open that last year I thought that Indiana, what I've said is, and I think this applies going forward, not just to Mike Woodson, I thought it applied to Archie Miller too, is at the point you realize you're at Indiana, at the point you realize you have a coach that cannot win a national championship, that is not capable of winning a national championship, move on as soon as possible so that you don't waste time. Because you knew that was the case last year. It was very clear with the way the program was being run in front of the cameras and behind the scenes that this was not a NCAA championship program. Not even a Big Ten championship program, but definitely not an NCAA championship. If the goal is to hang another banner, is national championships, as soon as you know that's not your guy, I don't care if it's year 1. Mm-hmm. If you know for a fact that's not your guy and he is incapable of doing that, get out as soon as possible and don't waste your time. You have the money.
Halftime of the Indiana State game. Archie, we're not sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're having second thoughts.
And I think that, you put yourself, by not moving on last year, you put yourself in an unenviable situation, because there were some good candidates last year. There's still some good candidates this year. And I think that some of the guys you missed potentially on last year could be available this time still. But what I'll say too is any of the suggestions that a former Indiana guy should get the job because they get Indiana or they know IU or any of that crap people have said since I was in college need to be flushed down the toilet. Okay. I have said repeatedly
since people themselves that are saying that, or the words?
The words, not the people. I don't clog your toilets. It's a bad. But I like, but it's this thing that like Indiana has this unique thing that only somebody who went there or somebody who like grew up there can understand. It's like, that's not true. Every program feels they have a unique culture and this great, story to history and all that. It's a good coach will come in and create his own version of that. The best coaches do that themselves. They don't try and do what you've done in the past or make it work like it. They bring in and they have the balls to set their own thing up and run it that way. Curt Cignetti is a perfect example. Curt Cignetti didn't try and build on what somebody else did. He did his own thing, and it was very successful. And the fact that he didn't have to pay homage to something somebody else did gave him the freedom to do it his own way, and the results spoke for themselves. And so, the suggestion that like, oh, well, this is the time. I've had DMs from people. I know this is a fringe part of the fan base. I'm not saying everybody's doing this, but like people being like, this is Steve Alford should get his chance. He should have had his chance the whole time. It's like, stop looking backwards. Stop looking in the past to find solutions for the future. Look forward and find somebody who's going to build their own thing and make it special. The way somebody else came who had no connection to Indiana and built something from scratch and made it special. You need to do that again instead of trying to recreate something that's been gone for 25 years. So that's where I'm at with this coaching search. We'll talk candidates in a second. The only person associated with Indiana in any way who should be a candidate is Dusty May, because he has had success at the college level to a very high level, and he's doing it at a place at Michigan. He's proving himself on the floor. I think he should be a candidate, but the fact that he went to IU has nothing to do with his candidacy. It's that he's done something pretty good at the college level and is continuing to build on that. So that's just the ground floor of where we're at right now. I think Indiana needs to stop being insular and look out and look to the entire college basketball world. And I think the person they get should be somebody who has had success at a high level in college basketball, who knows how to coach college basketball, who has the energy to survive in this era of college basketball, of recruiting, of NIL, of all of that, and attack that with a ferocity we haven't seen from a coach in quite a while. That's what needs to happen. I don't care if, a phenomenal NBA coach is like, I want that job. I don't care. Somebody who's done it at the college level and could do it in this era of college sports and college basketball is what is needed.
Yeah. I think, for folks who are, kind of waiting patiently as this coaching search unfolds, I recommend X's and Joe's, the podcast that Bob does with Mike. Listen to how successful programs are built and the choices that get made and the types of coaches that are successful. You guys just deliver so much good information on that. I would say just my opening thoughts in terms of the coaching search, there's a couple things. One is, obviously, as soon as any coaching search happens, the name Brad Stevens comes out. It's the Indiana basketball white whale for obvious reasons. We don't need to rehash all of them. And, you often see, it's really funny because the national media, of course, puts Brad Stevens at number one on all of their coaching lists and then makes fun of Indiana fans who mention it. And then even Indiana fans now kind of use it ironically and then say that you're not serious if you mention Brad Stevens in the coaching search. Here's the reality of it. Brad Stevens is clearly at the top of Scott Dolson's list. Yes. Indiana will clearly gather together all of the resources that they can. And
I'll be honest. I have heard that Brad Stevens is willing to listen, but he's a guy who's always willing to listen.
Right. So, okay. So stop right there. Indiana will clearly make it known that he's number one. Any resource that he wants will be there. And, he has ties to the state. There are reasons why he will listen. Does that mean it's likely? No. But it's not foolish to mention it because it's the first place Indiana's going to go.
Yeah, look.
So it may not go, who knows how far it goes.
Go ahead,
but
Bob.
It's worth at least mentioning.
And again, I mean, I'm not even joking when I said it this weekend. I have a list of 51 through 49. Their first 49 are Brad Stevens. I'm not accepting a no from him until he stomps on a pork tenderloin, yells John Mellencamp sucks, and then burns his autograph picture of Cowboy Bob and Tumbleweed the dog on national television.
Earns a Peyton Manning jersey while wearing a Tom Brady jersey too.
I like that one too. And I mean, he has two hands, he has two lighters. I say go for both. I mean, and my big thing with what IU has never really done to this point, and I think Ryan hit the nail on the head. You can't look back. Anybody that wants to do Steve Alford, anybody that's looking at anybody from past sorts of stuff. No, when Kentucky launched their program, they got Adolph Rupp, and then when they realized that they were in the doldrums, They tried Eddie Sutton. That didn't work. They went and got Rick Pitino from the Knicks when Rick was going to get fired anyway, or maybe had been fired. I can't remember. It's been a long time. Then they did the same thing with Calipari, grabbing from Memphis. So they've gone and shot for the moon and gotten a guy, fresh perspective. Come in here, win now. Carolina, after McGuire, they went out and they grabbed Dean Smith, out of camp, and maybe he was an assistant on staff, but he didn't go to North Carolina. He just had a job there after being at the Air Force Academy. John Wooden, the greatest coach ever, the man, the Washington on the college basketball coach Rushmore.
Wasn't a Santa Monica native.
No, furthest place from Santa Monica you could think of. I think I've actually hit golf balls into ponds in Martinsville, so that's the closest. And I mean it's true of any of these, any place in Indiana where we're pretty much landlocked. So the point is, you go and you find the guy that's going to bring your program there. You're going to go and you're going to find the guy that's going to win and build your culture. Those things are what you need. So yeah, you put Brad Stevens at the top of the list because he checks literally every box you have. The national guys are going to throw whatever they're going to say, up, down, sideways. I will say this as an opening. Bait them. They're ecstatic whenever we get all fired up and riled up. Trilly Donovan's going to put his kid through college just on the Indiana section of his burner Discord. I mean, that's what, $5 a month times what seems like 10,000. That he bought a beach house and put the kid through college. So I mean, you got to think. We're fun because we're the most meta fan base on the face of the earth, for one thing. We love talking about ourselves and everything around the program. We love being this way. So, and I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to find just find that medium where, yeah, go ahead. And if you want to knock Jeff around a little bit, go right ahead. Goodman, we want to knock him around a little bit, go right ahead. But Ant Wright, you want to yell at him, go retweet, go tweet at him a while. But for the most part, just know that they're looking to really drive this. And keep in mind at the same time, simultaneously, when you see a national hot board, there's a good chance Villanova is going to be making a move here very soon. Cal Neptune is probably not right for that job much longer. He can count days, not months, not years. Good chance that if those two move, Hubert Davis ends up finding himself needing a new job out of North Carolina. And those are two programs that might be looking to do the exact same thing Indiana is going to do, which is they're looking for the moonshot. They're looking for the Manhattan Project of coaches are going to come in there, level it, and get them back to where they want to be.
For North Carolina, man. After they lost to Clemson, like I logged onto Twitter today into my For You feed, where it's not people that you follow, but it's stuff they think you'll be interested in. It was all these North Carolina tweets. And at first I would read them. I was like, oh, that sounds like an Indiana tweet. It's not. It's just all North Carolina fans.
Yeah.
Just be careful, North Carolina. Don't let anybody tell you to not be passionate and hold your program to high standards. And, just
one thing I think is
there. You don't need to go through the wilderness like we did.
Speaking on Brad Stevens, before we put him to bed and talk about other guys, is it has been 12 years since he coached college basketball, and it's been 4 since he coached basketball at all. And I think that not that he would be terrible. What's crazy is he and Dusty May are the same age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like he's 48. He's still only 48 because he was such a young whiz kid. The last time this came around, Scott Dolson went hard after Brad Stevens. And what I've been told is he said he was going to make him the highest paid coach of college basketball. And from what I understand, it was not a flat no for a while. And then it was. And I think that there are a lot of family considerations for Stevens in there that had to do with that. I also would say if Brad Stevens ever wants to come back to coaching, I have said I think it's more likely he takes over the Indiana Pacers than IU eventually. But if he ever wants a chance at the Indiana job, I would say this is probably his last chance because I don't think Indiana's going to let themselves get turned down 3 times. And so it just depends. If he says no this time, I think the dream dies for sure. I thought it kind of died last time given the way how publicly it was shot down. But there seems to be a window open where he's willing to, as always, listen. And because somebody's willing to listen does not mean they're willing to say yes. Let's be clear on that. He's won an NBA championship now as the president. Maybe he's ready for a new challenge. I don't know.
They have new
But
ownership coming in.
They
which
do
could
have
add
new ownership coming in.
flux
People,
there.
yes, and so there's a couple moving pieces here that could work in Indiana's favor. I do not know where his head is at all. I think we'll find out pretty quickly, quite frankly. Because I think last time it leaked, and I think it'll leak again because it involves an NBA franchise, and stuff doesn't stay hidden there. So I think that will be number one. Scott Dolson struck out last time. He doesn't want to strike out twice. He wants to go after his guy. That was his guy. That's going to still be his guy, in my opinion. After that, and I agree. Yeah, shoot your shot. I am not one of those people that is, you can't offer the job. You can only offer the job to the guy who's going to say yes. It's like, who cares? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to like publicly be offering it to everybody, but like make people say no. Make the best people. Like if you go after, let's say, for example, I'm just throwing his name out there. He's never coming back to coach, but like if you think Jay Wright is the best coach in the world, even though he's retired right now, and you go hard after him and he says no to you, there's no embarrassment there because Jay Wright's an amazing
That
coach.
one's more ridiculous than Stevens.
It is. It 100% is. I'm just
Agreed.
using his
Agreed.
name as an example. I'm just using it. But like if for example, if you went to Danny Hurley right now and said, take IU, and he said no, you'd be like, what are you blaming us? Why are you upset at us for asking? Like, he's the best coach in college basketball right now. Like, of course we're going to ask him, there's no embarrassment in that. The embarrassment comes when you're asking your 12th choice and it's getting out there publicly and you're getting rejected. It's not going after the best. And so what happened last time was they went after Stevens really hard. And when they lost out, they didn't have backup plans that everybody was on the same page about pursuing hard. And a certain faction pushed Woodson. That's what happened. It wasn't a list where, okay, cross that guy off. Let's go to the next. And that's what needs to happen this time is you need to have a hierarchy, a list, and it has to be guys who are successful. After Stevens, it's really interesting who your top candidates would be. It really is. We know that at one point, we all know this, it's pretty much been made public by now that Bruce Pearl wanted the Indiana job real bad, as in he would have taken less money than he's making at Auburn to coach Indiana. And I've joked that he would have crawled over broken glass naked from Alabama to Indiana to get the job. That's how badly he wanted it. I don't know if that's
you could
the
just
case
pick him up in
anymore.
a plane.
Well,
I mean, it would be so much easier. Why are you even offering that, Bruce?
Ryan, it got
just seemed like something Bruce Pearl might do, though.
Yeah, he really does.
It got to a point with Bruce Pearl where, I mean, about a year ago, I jokingly said, if a Girl Scout cookie said she had an aunt who lived in Indiana, he asked the Girl Scout cookie to get her aunt on the phone right then and there, so he could say, "Hey, I want the Indiana job. Can you tell all your friends?" He was campaigning. I mean, I've seen guys campaign for a nomination for public office less intensely than he was campaigning for that job.
And it's not. And honestly, it's not. He hasn't been quiet about his love for Indiana. Now, I don't. There's some personal considerations for him about Auburn, about leaving Auburn because of his son and how his son would get set up and all of that. Like. So I don't know if that's a consideration.
Doesn't seem nearly as like
nearly as dire.
Might have been.
He's literally got the number one team in the country right now.
I know.
He'll probably be at when you look at the brackets coming out, he'll probably be on 45% of the brackets for national champion. So I mean, it's at this moment, Bruce Pearl's riding high.
And I'll say Chris Beard gets mentioned a lot. I have heard mixed things about whether or not he would possibly be a candidate. And most of the time I was in Bloomington this weekend and somebody quoted to me and said 0% chance. I think he's an outstanding head coach. He knows how to win in college basketball. Several big programs have peered under the hood at him and not made the offer. And I don't think that would be unique to Indiana.
What would be?
I think there are several big programs that would not extend him an offer because of personal stuff.
What'll be interesting to me, and Ryan, you hit the because I just brought up Villanova and Carolina. So let's say we get into it's May 1st and we're talking, and we see if Chris Beard's still sitting at Ole Miss. That'll be a good tell for us because you would think that if someone was going to, Not saying anybody's going to gamble on that, but it's like let's look and see if Chris Beard's still at Ole Miss on May 1st, then it may be one of those things where it's kind of like Bob Huggins going to West Virginia with those alma mater. He's going to stay there for a while. I think that may be a job that he may be out at a little longer than most if he goes through this process and nobody else tries to take him on.
Beard's an interesting one. I think it's more ridiculous talking about him than Stevens. I get why people do. I also think personally, look, I think one thing that we have to understand about this coaching search is there's a big difference between this guy would be a big upgrade over what we've had, and this guy is the best candidate for the job. So Beard clearly as a coach would be a big upgrade over what we've had. I actually think he is getting a little bit overrated in comparison to some of the other guys, and here's why. When you look at what wins national championships, and everybody else who's not an Indiana fan can laugh about Indiana fans having, wanting to have a coach that they can view as a guy who may someday win a national championship. But that is, I think what again, we can be happy with just competitive basketball again, but you should take some of these things into account that since 2014, every single national champion has been at least 9th or better in offensive efficiency, and all but 2 were 3rd or better. So if you actually want to win a national championship, recent history suggests you need to be among the elite of the elite offensively. It's not quite the same for defense. You need to be good defensively. The average, I think, is like 10.3, ranked 10.3. But, you've had teams down in the 20s who have won national championships. So you need to be good. You need to be in the top 25. And then you need to have the ability to be very good situationally, right? Whereas offense, you just need to kind of be elite. And so that to me is where, like, I have no idea if a guy like Nate Oates is even a possibility.
He's not.
But
He already
he's
said
kind
no.
of, yeah. But a guy like, Scott Drew is a little bit more offense than he is defense. Dusty May is a little bit more offense than he is defense. And Dusty May has never had I think his highest offense is 24th. I'm not sure where Michigan is this year. But to me, again, if we end up with someone like, let's say, Mick Cronin, okay? If we end up with him, and I know I just said they're good, but they're boring. Well, that's what Indiana basketball will be. But we would win at a much higher level than we have. So he would be a massive upgrade, but to me, not the ideal type guy. And that's kind of where I view Beard. I think Beard's a very good coach, but he is also
He'd win a lot.
defense-first coach, and he would win. But I think there's other things that make him a non-starter, but I also think there's other reasons why other guys would be a better candidate with a higher ceiling. We can get a guy that's going to raise the floor. Again, Mick Cronin is that profile of coach.
Cronin. Did you say Mick Cronin?
He would raise the floor for sure.
Yes,
he's not the
the
ideal
ceiling.
type guy.
But no, I agree. Right. And by the way, Mick Cronin will throw himself at this job. 1,000% he will throw himself at this job. He wants to get out of the West Coast but he wants to be at a top job. But would he crawl over glass? He would not. I don't think so.
The bar.
He'd run through a plate glass. He'd run through a plate glass window.
Even Brad Stevens. You want this job, buddy? You crawl over glass because there's people who will do it.
No,
walk barefoot on rocks. Walk barefoot on rocks.
Mick Cronin would bring toughness and all that, but I agree, Jared. He's a high floor, low ceiling guy. The other one that I'll say is people bring up Ben McCollum a lot. Ben McCollum hasn't really done anything. He did stuff at a lower level, which is great, but that's not running a high level program like Indiana. That's very Archie Miller.
The recruiting is an issue here with that because you're not sure you can act. He's going to have to access talent veins that he may not. Because I think that was Archie Miller's problem here. He could not figure out how to target effectively, and then get guys on visits, and then get him offers to visits to commits. And he was definitely shooting lower. I mean, again, I had a smart guy with me all weekend who talks about this stuff, very, very effectively. Mike would be the first one to say, "Look, you look at where he was hitting." The concern with McCollum would be that he would be in the same boat there. He would be in the same boat.
And this brings up another interesting point about this coaching search that people need to keep in mind. Every coaching search is going to have a little bit of a different risk profile to it. And that is what Scott Dolson is weighing. You've got risks and rewards of coaches. Again, you hire Mick Cronin, and just using him as an example because he has such a long track record, and he's like a potential name, right? That could be the guy. You know what you're getting. That is a low risk hire. And I think for that reason, you could talk yourself into it. Like, man, we just need to get Indiana back to being a top 25 team that's competitive. Let's restore some of this brand here. And Mick Cronin's going to do that. He is low risk, right? And so that's what I think is interesting about this is you do want to shoot for the moon, a guy that has a really high ceiling. I don't think you can take a chance on a guy like McCollum.
No,
I don't.
Not this time. If hadn't happened, if Woodson hadn't happened, maybe.
And this is why when we had some of these conversations last year, and everybody's like, Dusty May, to me, I wasn't that high on it because it's like, okay, it's impressive what he's done at Florida Atlantic, but he hasn't done it anywhere else. Now that he has, Michigan first place in the Big Ten on February 11th, there's a little bit more
in year one.
It's like, okay, Dusty. Now he's not as proven as Cronin, right? But it's like, okay, there's a little bit less risk here, and you've still got the ceiling of a guy who took Florida Atlantic to a Final Four. So that changes that profile a little bit. And I think Scott Dolson really has to weigh that because another dud hire.
And he has a decent recruiting class coming in. I mean, he's got a couple guys that are actually high level dudes coming in that are going to so the biggest question you have with May coming in, can he win Power 5? Yes. Can he recruit Power 5? Yes. So, and not just any Power 5, but a Power 5 program with high expectations.
And I'll say this
not just Northwestern.
I'll say this about Scott Dolson. This hire will define his legacy. It's not going to be Kurt Cignetti. It's going to be this hire because it's basketball. And I'll also say this is that a lot of people don't blame the Woodson hire on him. They blame
other people,
everything else around the university, a lot of things around that athletic department and donors and things like that for pushing Mike Woodson. They don't blame him. This is his hire, and he earned that hire by making the Cignetti hire, quite frankly. He's whatever happens here will define his legacy. And so this is a guy who is going to go all out on this and try and get the right guy. I don't think he's going to go risk averse. I think he's going to go, I don't think he's going to go risky like Ben McCollum. I'm just saying, I don't think he's going to go the safe choice. He's going to try and find the home run. Somebody else mentioned TJ Otzelberger from Iowa State. Great coach, like him a lot. His wife went to Iowa State. He does have a massive buyout. It's less than 18 million. Somebody said that it's 8 figures, I believe, but it's not that big, not that high. But I don't think he's leaving. I think they're happy there. I would be surprised if he was willing to get Pride away. Another thing about McCollum, and a lot of people have said this, he has deep Iowa ties. He may just be waiting for Fran to retire and go take the Iowa job.
And that step up from Drake to Iowa makes a heck of a lot more sense than going from Drake to Indiana. It's like if we were doing this last year, it's why Indiana would not have hired Schurz, when he goes to St. Louis. He needed to get out of the Valley to, again, a lower level Power 5 program or one of those next type of conference, high mid-major type conferences where he can actually show that he can compete at this level, be able to do the things that he needs to do in order to get the next job.
So as we wrap this up here, because it is getting late and there's a lot more time to talk about this.
This will sharpen in the next few weeks, guys. We'll have a better picture in 2 weeks, I'd say.
It is fun talking about names. And I do think it's an interesting exercise for any fan, I think, to think about the profile of a coach that you want based on the stuff we know. You can look at a guy's Wikipedia page. You can look at their win-loss record. You can look at kind of how their teams play on Ken Pom. You can watch their teams play. I think it's important to remember how much we don't know about these coaches. Archie being hired was a great lesson in this. Mike Woodson being hired was a great lesson in this, because think about some of the things that we said about those guys when they were hired and then what reality actually was. Because so much of success in coach, shut up, Ryan.
Yeah.
So much of success.
You okay? You win the one man in America who said it. Maybe the one guy in America who said it.
Okay. Wait, you weren't anti.
No, you said Woodson, and I pointed. I said Woodson. Everything that was going to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Woodson was 50-50. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No,
okay,
Archie,
what I mean
like
is,
everybody else in the country, I was
the
on
whole
board
world was on board.
Yeah.
Archie. Yeah.
And that's what I think is important to remember is there's so many things that we don't know about personality, how a guy approaches the job, the way that they manage their program that needs to be the right fit for the university and the culture and the department. And we just don't know that stuff. And that's obviously where Scott Dolson has to make those decisions. And he nailed it with Curt Cignetti. And so I am more than willing to step back, and whoever he hires, I'm going to support it and think it's a good choice because I think it's going to be him making it. But I guess I say all of this to say I would not get too attached to any one name. Instead, I would think about the profile of a coach that you like and consistently remind yourself how little you know about the actual coaches. And so that's what makes it such an inexact science. And that's why when all these coaching hires get graded, it's like, all right, that's great, but it doesn't mean anything, and so it's important to remember that. And so I think we should approach this coaching search with enthusiasm because it is an opportunity for a fresh start. And I think there are some exciting names, and I hope that we get one of them, but also humility because, hey, some of these hires haven't been working or they haven't worked long-term, and so we just don't know, and we're going to have to see it play out. But I do feel like Scott Dolson has shown us that he can be trusted to make a hire that's going to make sense. And hopefully that works out. But I just think it's important because I see a lot of people really, getting attached to particular names, and just be careful, because you don't know everything about that name. None of us do. And there may be a reason why that guy's not considered or doesn't get hired and why someone else does. And I think we need to be open-minded to whatever that is, moving forward.
I also want to say that you're going to see these coaching lists. We're going to talk about the candidates that are getting mentioned the most. I mean, if we hear something behind the scenes, we'll tell you. But there's also the very real possibility that it's a hire from out of left field, that it's somebody we're not even considering or wouldn't even put on a list because we don't think they'd take the job because of the situation.
Matt Painter. By the way,
we said that on Saturday, and everyone was like,
brilliant.
Okay, Galen,
a half hour on it.
If you haven't listened to Galen's Crimson Cast episode where he lays out the case, and I fully agree with him. Whatever your offer is for Brad Stevens, if he says no, you just put it all in the truck, you drive to West Lafayette, and you say, Matt Painter, you want to come coach for the team that you cheered for when you were growing up? Come right now. Because you can't hang a banner there. You can hang a banner here. We'll give you that opportunity. You do it full well knowing he can't say yes. He can't. He just can't.
But also,
you make Purdue pay him market value.
Yeah.
Make them pay him market value because they have not a lot of resources up there. To their credit, they're doing more with less.
They are.
But make them pay him more than $4.5
But
million.
what I'll say about that the out of left field hire is Indiana's has flexed its NIL muscle. This roster's worth more than $5 million. I've heard over that, but $5 million keeps getting tossed around, so we'll stick with that. They have a commitment to facilities. They've shown in football. They have the Big Ten TV contract now. They're in the best, the financially positioned conference in the country. It feels like at this moment. They have all these resources. They want for nothing as far as financial stuff goes. A lot of schools that have successful programs do not have that because of a focus on football. Now, Indiana is putting money into its football program, no question, but the basketball money here rivals anywhere in the country. And that would not surprise me if somebody were not considering at a very good job, who is a very good coach, decides to take advantage of that while the money's still hot. So I would say that. I'm not saying that I don't have anybody in mind. I'm not saying that, leading you down a path. I'm just saying that we're seeing these lists of coaching candidates who are the likely guys who they would talk to, who would come. There might be somebody we're not considering who would come to Indiana because of all of that. So, and I'm saying all this, and it might just be a guy that was right on one of those coaching lists. The third guy on the list took it. But I do think that Indiana has a lot going for that people aren't considering. And this search could surprise you because I think everybody feels like Indiana cannot miss again. So they're going to go all out for
it. I totally agree. I totally agree with that. It is a can't miss hire. And I'm just going to throw out the, rare for me, the irrational view that, at this point, get your Sears wish book out. We're all getting the USS flag, find whatever that big toy that you wanted as a kid was and know that even though mom has said there's no way we can keep this anywhere in the house, even though it's the size of your room, you're going to get it. Believe that as a fan. I think one of the things we get just drug into the muck on so much is we get drug into the muck for is this whole thing of the soap opera and the drama around the sea as assembly turned soap opera. Well, we heard this from Nancy's cousin in 31 Flavors that this person's mad at this person, so therefore they're never going to get the job, or this person and that person. And it's like I heard from my cousin's real estate agent's dog walker that he walks dogs for this trustee, and I mean you'll get that sort of like thing of follow the rumors, don't follow the rumors, yell at some people who are the national people just because it might be fun for you, therapeutic for you, I don't know which. And just have that moment of just that it's kind of a little, it has as much fun with this as you can, because there is that moment where it's like, if you really get that, get that moment. And I mean, I guess if you own the USS flag, maybe your dreams were realized when you were younger. If you owned that toy, I had the AT-AT, but I'm going to tell you, it's a whole different. Just have that thing, and then just don't be disappointed when they get you something that's they get you an extra Sky Striker for Christmas. Is my point. Speaking of Ryan, and we're going to go. I just want to do a quick plug because Ryan actually said yes. I'm not sure why any sane person would do it. He's going to go on with Mike and I, not this episode, but in the next episode, we're going to talk about what to expect when you're expecting a coaching search. And we're going to go 90 minutes or so with Ryan just to kind of go through kind of that whole process of what are the attributes and the detriments of coaching hires that you should be looking for and what you should be expecting going through the process.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go on. Bob asked me very sweetly when we were there, and would you be willing to go? I was like, of course. Yeah, you guys just had to ask. I would love to go on. I love the show.
Would you want to hang out with us? I mean,
yeah.
Then you had to talk to his agent and pay his booking.
I mean, look, it's going to cost you. I'm not saying I'm not doing it for free, Bob.
Pulled out that he doesn't like.
I had an open tab at the upstairs. Did you not find me? I mean, I swore I would. We had that all squared away, man.
I would love to do the show. I love the show. I would love to do it. I'm really excited to get on with you guys.
All right, we'll be in touch.
One, did you notice? So tonight during the Michigan State game, they would show Tom Izzo, and there were some guys at Michigan State, like they've got those little the courtside seats. There's like little groups of 4 seats, and so they kept showing Tom Izzo with some of those guys behind them. And there was one, he was sitting all the way to the right, and he had a hoodie on and like kind of spiky hair. And every time I saw him, I thought he looked like Mike, but kind of like Mike's like a little more casual younger brother, just like show up to a game in a hoodie and the hair's a little bit longer, so he's kind of like Mike's alter ego. That's, a little more casual, maybe a little more boisterous. I don't know why I couldn't.
I love that
Mike has an evil twin. If that's the case, we got to get this guy. We got to find out where he is.
Somebody in the chat just mentioned it's funny they dragged Steve Mariucci there for the celebration and Izzo didn't get it done. Like, ouch, Steve, that's a plane ticket you are not getting back.
Yeah, and also Bob, you kind of telling people to view this, kind of like a present that they've asked for from their parents. Obviously, the biggest gift that we could all get is Brad Stevens. So on this week when we're going to be celebrating SNL's 50th anniversary, the first thing I thought about when you said that is the old Bill Hader sketch called Alan, or I think it's Taron Killam and somebody else, and they end up at home, and he's just got this big wooden box. And it's got a note from his parents, and they open up the box, and it's just Bill Hader standing there. And you press a little remote control, and then he dances to this real silly music. Anyway, it's so funny. I was watching that one last night. I'm gonna I'll put the link in the YouTube chat. That's what I was thinking about. You show up, and Brad Stevens is just there in a wooden box, and he just dances to music for you
with that grin on his face. You see in the he just pop that grin open, sitting there on the bench. I'm so mad at SNL. I'm mad at SNL because they keep talking about their 50th, and I was born in 1975. And so every time I turn on Peacock, I'm reminded I'm turning 50 in a few weeks. I mean, it's like it's a constant reminder. I can't get away from it on Facebook. All my friends are all doing the same thing.
Are they doing it?
They're doing it early.
Are they doing it on Saturday? Or they're doing it on Sunday? Because I think one of the specials they did on Sunday.
I think they're going to do the big extravaganza is going to be Sunday of this week. So
okay, that's what I thought.
It's not the normal. It's not in the normal.
Yeah,
time slot, huh?
No, they
want more viewership. Yeah,
they're doing prime time. They're doing a red carpet walk, so you get to see Chevy Chase walking in there. You know, they're going to interview him out front, and Lord only knows what he'll say. And you know, it's like just from Eddie Murphy all the way down. You know, it could be a fun time. So yeah, it's going to be it'll be a good watch.
It is Sunday,
always
Peyton Manning, one of the best sports hosts.
He'll be there. He will be there.
40. I don't know if you guys watched 40. 40 was great. Yeah, 40 was great. The best was the interaction with Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David. Where Jerry goes, "Well, you go to the after party?" And he's like, "No. Why would I go to an after party? Like, I'm here. Why would I do something else?" Like,
all right. Curtis says Sunday at 8 East. Whoa.
Yeah.
Showing up in the chat. Brian
Hey.
Somebody said he couldn't show up tonight.
After 1 o'clock.
What are you doing up? I mean, I'm dying over here. I'm thinking I'm be dragging my fingernails across the floor tomorrow.
It's a school night.
You have a snow day, man?
It is a school night. All right. Let's close it up here. Fun evening. Thanks for hanging, guys. Glad we got to do both. We got to talk about a victory, got to talk about a coaching search. This is what it's all about. This is
Here I come, Mrs. Stoney.
This is why we're here.
That's right. That is right. All right. Well, take care, everybody. We'll be back Tuesday night after the UCLA game. Some combination of us will be here. And
Tuesday?
Yeah. Isn't it Tuesday? Wait, what day is it today? No, Friday. Sorry.
Friday. Today's Tuesday today.
No. Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, all these days being thrown around.
Unfortunately, we'll not be here on Friday. I apologize, everybody.
Oh, great. That's fine. That is fine. All right, everybody. Take care. And what the hell? Bring back the Bison.
Yeah.
Steal Galen's final line. There you go.
Where am I tonight?
Bye, everybody.